Welcome to the Sandwich Crunch, where we navigate the trends and issues that impact boomers and seniors at home, in the workplace, and the community. My name is Bonnie Kuhn, your host, and we are really thrilled today to have Johanna Atman, PhD and certified massage therapist with Whole Life Therapies. And she and I are going to be discussing the power of touch with regards to massage therapy and seniors. Welcome.
Well, thank you so much. I'm really delighted to be here and talk about one of my favorite subjects, the power of touch. There's so many levels of that.
Well, I thought we could kick it off with you telling everyone about your experience, because I've known you for some time, and I thought it would be nice for them to know a little bit about you.
Well, I'm not sure where you want me to start. I've done hands-on work of various kinds for a very long time, probably started more than 30 years ago. And of course, you just acquire new and different skills along the way. And so I use body work and massage therapy very often to connect with what I say the being that's inhabiting the body, because it's so much, there's a lot going on besides joints and muscles and things that usually are what massage therapists focus on or talk about. So I can bring, a lot of different supportive tools to the hands-on work, depending on, who the person is, what their needs are. It's definitely not one size fits all type of a thing. It's very unique, really, to each individual because they're all unique.
You're right. I've actually worked with you. You've worked with me, and it's been a very pleasurable experience. And I've also known you working with several other people who've really enjoyed that individuality that you give them. You really give them that personal touch of what they need as an individual and what their body needs, and you're able to help them connect with something very deep within themselves through that massage therapy.
Thank you for that. I mean, that's really what keeps me interested. I had a teacher once that said he would be just bored doing a massage, one after another for years. And I often think of him saying that because I am never bored. I mean, I've created the type of work really that is different. Even with the same person, it's going to be different next week than it was last week because they're different, I'm different. Things are always in flux. So it's just a joy to connect with people in the moment in a whole lot of different ways.
Well, one of the things that we talked about is that you have really branched into a very, very significant market, and that's working with seniors. And you're actually working at the Foothill Village down in Angels Camp. So I wanted to talk about that because some of the facts and figures I've read about seniors is that so many aren't touched. They get older and either their spouse has passed away or their family's moved away. They don't have people close enough to them and they don't have that physical touch. And that is such an essential part of life. It's just like from the day we're born, we're touched. And we need to continue to be touched. So I wanted to know if you'd share about your experience, because I imagine that's got to be the most rewarding experience.
It's really fun. Every other Monday afternoon, I'm usually there. And before we get to that, though, I just want to say that the article that you just wrote for the Calories Chronicle really covered the kinds of things that I think you're thinking about in terms of massage therapy and how much it goes beyond the obvious physical things. Yes, it increases circulation and strengthens the immune system and, does activate a lot of different systems in the body physiologically. But as you pointed out really beautifully in that article, the other things that come through touch of, a feeling of comfort, of security, of hope. People leave, with a smile on their face, they're joyful. It varies a lot, I think, depending on what kind of senior you're talking about. Some of the things you just mentioned, I think it's of course, who do we include when we say seniors? Are we talking, anywhere from 65 to 95? I mean, I don't know what you think about.
It could be boomers to seniors, because some of boomers are 1940 are seniors now. So it's really boomers that are going into seniors, and then we've got the seniors that are becoming elders.
Exactly.
So it's not just the boomers.
I'm so glad to hear you use the word elders. One of my sort of current thoughts when you hear the phrase anti-aging a lot. And I always sort of bristle a little when I hear that expression, because I think, well, what do we mean? Are we anti-nature? I mean, we are aging, people age, and I think really, the concept of elders is one way to really think about aging that's so different from just this anti-aging, have youthful skin, all those kinds of things to aspire to that I think aren't very comforting, really. As you get older, there needs to be sort of other things to shoot for, I think, and other models of how we age.
I agree with you, because it's all in the media. I mean, if you look at these stick figures that they put out on the magazines and you see all these things, it's really inappropriate. I mean, they're really not addressing our audience anymore. They're addressing an audience that's not going to exist.
Yeah, kind of a stereotypic face
Barbie doll.
and figure. Yeah, it's the new Barbie doll.
Barbie doll and Ken.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I imagine that state of mind is important really at any age.
Correct.
But I think certainly as you age, what you feel good about, what your reflections are, what your memories are, what you're looking forward to tomorrow. You learn to live, I think, in a very different way than, say, in your 30s or 40s, where you feel like you have enough time ahead of you to take on any new vision or dream without a thought. But at some age, you begin to realize that it's going to be more important to deepen your life experience on a day-to-day level than to think of, some grandiose thing that you are going to do in the next 10, 15 years. So back to Foothill, though, I think that the women there are extraordinary, and the people that I've been seeing, they were in a generation that really knew about good, healthy food, so their diets have been good, and they are really healthy, even in their late 80s. I think the oldest person I worked on was early 90s, maybe 92,
Gosh, that's
93.
wonderful.
Right. But they come in certainly, under their own power, and their muscle tone is strong and good. So physically, some of the things that you might think about for seniors don't apply so much to the women that I'm currently working with. They've been in and out a few times where, just working lighter and not doing too much might come into play. But for the most part, I'm doing the same kind of work with these women that I would do with anyone. I mean, each time it's adapted to that person. Diabetes and having numbness in the feet and legs is pretty common, so really focusing on circulation. One of my clients says she thinks I keep her walking. She's
What a gift.
strong spirit, but it is effective at sort of very practical levels, as well as levels that might be more hard to even measure, the ones we talked about before: contentment, joy, just being engaged in your life moment to moment.
Yeah, living in that moment. I would imagine for you to be with that senior, whether you're helping them with arthritis or helping them with diabetes or just bringing that sense of touch, just that personal connection is extraordinary. And the human touch is the most immediate way of getting that connection.
Well, yeah, I mean, when you think about touch, what all is involved with touch? I mean, let's think about skin for a minute. I mean, skin is the largest organ in our body of elimination. It's really a mediator between everything on the inside and everything on the outside. So information's coming in from the outside, whether it's information like temperature, whether it's warm, cold, but also, you can feel other things in the air. Some environments feel upbeat and warm, positive, others don't. So, the skin's receiving all this information, and at the same time, there's a lot of information on the inside that comes through the skin. If you get a rash, that's your body communicating through the skin that there's either a toxicity or an infection, something's going on. So just that alone, and also on the skin, every single little point on the skin, I mean, acupuncture points are sort of key points that have been recognized all over the body that connect with different organ systems and things like that. But the reality is, almost any point on the body is a connection to the whole. I mean, we are sort of holographic in that sense, that like the points on your feet relate to the whole body, points on your ears relate to the whole body, points on the skull relate to the whole body.
Oh, I love it when you massage my head.
Well,
Feels
there
so
is a work
good.
called cranial sacral work, and that's in a way more than massaging the head. It really deals with the whole nervous system. You're doing very non-invasive, gentle protocols. I think I did do that with you a number of times. That really, it's just very deeply relaxing. People can often go to just a different state of consciousness, you could say. Sometimes people think they're sleeping. They're not sleeping. They're just deeply relaxing. You know about the brain waves and alpha. They're more in an alpha state, which is what you would be in if you were meditating. Something that's different from where you and I are in the beta state, talking, thinking, analyzing, planning. Everything we do all day is more the beta brainwave. And so this is taking people into a different level. It's just very deeply relaxing, and it's working with the whole nervous system. So it's wonderful work with seniors, because even if they can't be touched throughout their whole body for whatever reason, you can work gently at their head and their feet and really be taking them into a deep state of relaxation. And to me, it's always a vehicle for what I say, remembering who you really are, you know, outside of just the personality that goes to the grocery store and talks to people. There's a deeper place of who we are that I think you get to experience with that kind of work.
You know, it's interesting you brought that up, because as working with seniors, and obviously, you know, the massage does a lot of things physically to help them and improve their well-being, but you just brought up something that many seniors are in that place of looking back on their life and reviewing their life, and I would imagine in some of you must have conversations with some of these seniors. So it's not just the massage therapy that is therapeutic, it's that intimacy of being able to be with them.
Absolutely. I mean, I think they really look forward to their massages, and I'd like to think they look forward to our visits, because I now see a number of people on a regular basis. So, I mean, it's an evolving relationship over time, and they teach me a lot. You know, I'm looking at them, and, you know, in a way, I'm looking in a mirror of that's me, only, you know, another 10, 15 years from now. So I pay attention to how they're doing, you know, and things like that. But they share all kinds of different stories, things they've all done, quite amazing things in their lives. I mean, they were in an era where women actually were out in the world doing things more so than the previous generations. So they do have great stories to tell about everything from family to university life, where they might have been teaching, or, you know, different. Some of them have traveled around much of the world, and it's great to just take in and receive their stories, and lots of laughing, you know, lots of humor, and that's probably the best medicine other than love. Humor is great, you know.
That's great. It is true. It is very, very true, because massage therapy, I do want to address some of the very specific issues that are very helpful for seniors. But you're right, it's that conversation, it's that connection that you have with that client. And they're not just a client anymore, you're two human beings that are in connection, and you're touching one another not only physically, but you are connecting in a very spiritual place.
I think so. I think massage, you know, it's always hard to talk about spirituality because it's hard to define, and it's hard to put words on an experience that's touch, which is really not verbal. So we're trying to talk about something that is so essentially not verbal. You know, it's a sensation in your body, and through that sensation, I mean, we now know, just through what's been studied in the brain, that all the sensations and thoughts and feelings create chemistry in the brain. So endorphins, other neuropeptides, I mean, there's chemistry going on that can make all the difference between a feeling of well-being, or, you know, if you're worried or frustrated or impatient or angry, that too creates chemistry that's actually a stepping stone toward dis-ease.
Absolutely.
So all this, things that we used to just intuitively know about body work, it's getting, I think, more exciting and interesting to see how specifically it actually works on that level. I mean, there are other levels that maybe are less scientific, that's sort of the spiritual end, but they almost just come together as one and the same, just the way you could say the body, mind, spirit are actually all together one and the same, even though we break them down in order to talk about one or the other, but they're really so interrelated.
Well, what are some of the things, so if a senior is listening right now and they are going, gosh, I know I'd really like to go to a massage therapist, but I'm not quite sure how they can help me. I understand the emotional thing. I think I get this, and maybe they've never had a massage before, because I'm sure there are a lot of seniors who've never had a massage before. I can tell you my mom didn't, and a lot of people have not. But the value of it and what it can do for some of the chronic illnesses that many seniors deal with.
Yeah, when you mentioned your mother, my mother came right to mind too, because in her later years, when I would go to visit her, she lived on the East Coast, and when I would go to visit, I would give her massages, just just in her clothes, laying on her bed, taking a nap or something, and I'd give her a foot massage or neck and shoulders, and she's a very conservative woman, and I don't think she'd ever had a massage, and she just would always say, oh, this is heavenly, this is just, it's so relaxing. So, I mean, the first thing is, it just really is a time where anybody, senior or otherwise, can just have an oasis of, where there's nothing you have to be, there's nothing you have to do, there's nothing to prove. And think about that in our society. I mean, we always are striving to, be better. And so just to be able to go inside and have no demand on you whatsoever, shouldn't be underestimated how powerful, just that time is. But in terms of what you're asking about specifically, certainly things like arthritis, as I mentioned, diabetes, a number of people that I work with have various levels of numbness in their legs and feet. And that is just a huge help. It's funny how your feet can be both numb and at the same time have pain.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of contradictory, but that is the way it is experienced. They all say that. And so I spend extra time on feet, legs, and it really begins, I think, to increase the circulation and just awaken more feeling, because it's becomes really difficult to walk if you can't feel your feet. You can fall easily, trip, things like that. So, well, then I work with one person that has MS, and I think any diseases of that type, often a problem is just the tightening of muscles. So getting regular work to relax her muscles is really, it's effective and it's really important. It really makes a huge difference. So yeah, it's much more than just sort of pampering. I mean, I think in the old days, people thought of it as a luxury, pampering yourself. And in fact, one of my clients says, I've gone from thinking this is a luxury that I should only treat myself once in a while, to realizing it's a necessity, because she feels really so much better when she comes regularly, and her back feels better.
So she has a greater sense of well-being, she has a greater sense of life. I mean, it sounds like a better quality of life.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think all of that's true. I'm trying to think of other maybe specific kinds of things that might affect that population more than others. But, it is so varied. Certainly, keep in mind, not all seniors have an illness or a disease, and I really like people to know that you don't have to be sick to come. Don't wait until you have a problem to come, because really a lot of alternative medicine is all about prevention and doing the things that keep your body really in the best condition it can be in. So, and that applies across the board, regardless of your age, but it certainly could be really true for people that just want to stay flexible, have more mobility. Sometimes a shoulder, just gets not literally frozen, although it's often called frozen shoulder, but even if it's not to that degree, usually people just begin to not have the range of motion. Necks don't turn when you're driving as well, or shoulders in particular. Low back, of course, is common.
Well, those
with
are
all
all
ages.
essential. Yeah, all ages. They all affect every age. It's amazing because it's interesting you brought up MS because my mom actually had MS. And so I know that that's a
You
very
probably
delicate disease to work with because that my mom would get these Charlie horses.
Yes.
And that's very common in that. So, but working in massage and working with people like we've talked about is that well-being that they walk away with, whether even if it's a short-term period, I would imagine that that must be a gift that they are just so happy to have because
Well, yes. I mean, it may help with things like, the tension in muscles that create those terribly painful Charlie horses. But also, just it's an oasis in time where, at least for that hour, they may be able to experience themselves as something other than a person who has cancer or MS or whatever the identity of the disease is. I've definitely heard people with cancer say that about massage, that the most blissful part is just having some time where they're not aware of their cancer. I mean, that's not the primary thing that's going on for that hour. And how wonderful that is to just be able to be engaged with something broader and deeper and differenter than the identity that you live with. Because after a while, with any disease, it can feel like it's a full-time job just dealing with what you have to deal with, whether it's going to the doctor, or taking medications, doing whatever stretches, or, there are just many things that begin to define your life.
well, the other thing you incorporate into your practice is you also incorporate essential oils. And I thought you could approach that. And
Yeah,
talk
I'm
about
glad you
that.
brought that up, because I was thinking actually on the way here that besides touch and the hands-on work, that more and more I incorporate both flower essences and essential oils. And sometimes most people don't really know what the difference is, and just briefly, essential oils are really distilled oils from the plant. And
So like a peppermint oil or a mint oil or something
yeah, you
like
take,
that.
Tons of plant material, and you're actually putting it through a still and through steam, distilling that oil. And it's interesting what that oil is the plant's immune system. It creates that oil in order to protect itself, to either keep away pests or to have a stronger immune system in general. That's what the oil is. And we are kind of the mirror of plants, because we're breathing in oxygen and putting out carbon dioxide. They're doing the exact opposite, and so it's their oxygen that we're using. So there's a very deep relationship between humans and plants. So when you take all that into consideration, the essential oil is a really significant ingredient. I mean, in our culture, we don't think of it as medicine so much, but in many cultures, and certainly ancient cultures did, those oils, almost any oil, is antiviral, antibacterial. If you had in hospitals, lavender in diffusers, I mean, right now many people are dying from MRSA because of the fact that the antibiotics are not working.
And what is MRSA?
That's when your body's not responding to the antibiotics, and I mean,
Okay.
it's happening in your blood, but it takes us far longer to create the next antibiotic than it takes the body. The bacteria can figure that out, and within 2 days have adapted to it and be somewhere else. So we're never going to catch up in that game.
Unless we go back to nature.
If you can diffuse things like tea tree oil, which is much more of a disinfectant level, lavender, they all have these amazing properties of being antibacterial, antiviral, antifungal, all those things. So on just a health level, they have really a lot to bring to us. And then, of course, they're also very effective emotionally and spiritually. Certainly, during the days of actually passing from this plane to the next. There are, a lot of different, the spiritual level of essential oils, something like sandalwood, frankincense, Palo Santo.
Gosh, those are such old oils that you've heard of for.
And they've always been used,
Yep.
in ceremonial places, religious places.
Yeah, they actually say castles still smell of the frankincense and
Yeah,
things like
yeah.
that.
Yeah. So yeah, they can, essential oils kind of work across the spectrum from physical things and healing any problems on the skin, sinuses. They're wonderful for, eucalyptus. And by the way, I'm talking about true therapeutic level essential oils. These days we have what's called aromatherapy, and you can buy anywhere fragrances that are just that. They may be fragrances that are not derived from plants at all. In fact, they could actually be they could have toxicity in them. So it's very important to me for people to learn and know their source of where they're getting the essential oils. I personally deal with a company where I know the founder and I know the access he has to different small growers all over the world that grow, say, one type of lavender or holy basil, sweet, well, it's a little different than the herb sweet basil that we have, but basil's been used in the Indian culture for hundreds and hundreds of years as sort of the panacea of an herbal medicine. It can do, most of these things can do many different things.
Well, isn't that where they get all of our pharmacology? All the
Well,
drugs
yes,
come from
except
all
in our
this.
culture, we tend to have a mentality of, well, what should I take for this, and what should I take for that?
Yeah, they want to take pills instead of trying
Well,
something
and for
natural.
one thing. And so
Right.
the idea that a plant could maybe deal with a dozen different maladies, to our mentality, we can think skeptically, well, how can it do all of those things? Well, it can, because there are hundreds of properties in that plant, and it's going to go in the body where it needs to go to heal something. So for somebody, it might be good for their sinuses. For somebody else, it might be just uplifting and clarifying in their mind. It varies. It can do many different levels. So that's essential oils. Flower essences.
Well, I think this is wonderful. We can keep going on and on. I can't believe a half hour is up.
Oh, wow.
Can you believe it? So we'll have to have you on again and talk about more of this. So everyone, thank you so much for joining us on the Sandwich Crunch, where we navigate the trends and issues impacting boomers and seniors at home, the workplace, and the community. Have a wonderful day.